welcome.
Well, I know you're really busy. Thank you for adjusting your schedule for us.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I've got a room full here at Velma Jackson. We're also recording this for our friends at Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School.
Okay.
And this is our entrepreneurship group, and we got some great questions for you as well. So, and we did watch. We've looked at your website and looked at your YouTube video from about a year ago. So, if you want to tell us about how you got into this, and where you're from, and what all y'all do.
Okay. Well, I did and you just let me know. I'm certainly not formal at all, but I did put together a brief little. Sorry about that. Brief PowerPoint.
You can share your screen. Go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. And it's very brief, and it's certainly not, like I said, it's not formal, but it's just really to kind of keep me on track and kind of give me a little roadmap of what to say so I don't start going off on tangents. Let's see. Do I know how to share my screen? Oh, yes, I do. Okay.
I've got it.
Okay.
I've got you.
There. Wonderful. Okay. So just and my little animation is not showing up on the slide presentation, but basically the name of it is Happy Tummies, Happy Times, my ongoing business journey, with keyword being ongoing. It is definitely a learning process and a steep learning curve, but absolutely starting this business has been one of the best decisions, and it's a lot, but it's absolutely worth it. Just to go into it here a little bit, I wonder if my screen is freezing. It's not wanting to. Oh, wow, that's okay. There we go.
All right.
I see what I'm supposed to do. Okay. So my objectives for this very brief, because I do want to hear the questions and I love to answer questions. I function much better that way, but just a very brief presentation about who exactly I am, and what I've done, what I am doing, and how I am doing it. So who I am, I'm from Smithville, Mississippi, and I don't know if too many people know exactly where that is, but it's in North.
The home of the Seminoles. My dad lives in South Florida. My dad's actually a surgeon in Tupelo.
No way.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm shocked because, and then you even went so far as to say Seminoles. I mean, so you know, I am a Smithville Seminole, and I graduated from Smithville and went to Millsaps College in Jackson, and pretty much Jackson area. I mean, that's just where I stayed for like the duration. Millsaps College is on State Street. I graduated from Millsaps and went a little further up State Street to University of Mississippi School of Medicine. And that's where I did med school and my residency in pediatrics. And then after I finished pediatric residency, I did a little blip where I left Jackson, Mississippi and went up to Cleveland, Ohio, where I did my pediatric gastroenterology fellowship. And that was the final destination for my medical training, my formal training. So that was 3 years in Ohio. That was a lot of snow and a lot of cold, and it was nice at first. And then we were happy to leave and come back to Jackson, Mississippi. At the time, GI Associates was on State Street. So State Street was pretty much my home for many, many years. And then GI Associates, the building moved from Jackson, Mississippi to Flowood, Mississippi, where it currently is. So that's just a little bit about, who I am and kind of where I got to present day. So what I've done with GI Associates, that's a huge group. So I was one of 3 pediatric GI doctors at GI Associates. At one point we went down to 2, and then we went back up to 3. But I was there for 8 years and 4 months. That was starting in August of 2012. And then, because right after I started in 2012 in August, I had my first child September of 2012. So I worked for about a month, and then it was time to have a baby. And then I came back. But while I was there, I did start a travel clinic. So with GI Associates, there was the main campus, the main location, and then there was another smaller location in Madison, Mississippi. So I did work those two areas the most, but then once a month I would go to Tupelo, Mississippi, and do a travel clinic there. And that was something really that I set up myself and talked to another pediatric group who had a lot of different subspecialties. And one of their subspecialists was in Tupelo, and she had office space that she was happy to share. So my husband and I didn't have any formal staff or anybody that I paid, but my husband and I would go up there once a month and run the clinic, and then we would come back. Wow. It was real straightforward, in and out. We didn't do labs. We didn't, we couldn't run tests or anything, but it was strictly getting the patients in, taking a history, making a plan, and then everything else was done after the fact. I was initially going on Fridays, and then I decided Saturdays would be better because parents weren't missing work, kids weren't missing school. And my folks, of course, are in Smithville, which is right outside of Tupelo. So we would just travel up, drop the kids off, go run a clinic, make a whole weekend of it. It was really nice. Other things that I did while I was at GI Associates, I started doing expert witness work, which is just a little side gig. It's a nice way to make some extra money. But it's more than just that. It allowed me to kind of exercise my medical skills in different ways that I may not get to do every day. A lot of stuff I see, constipation, reflux, it's real simple bread and butter kind of stuff. But with expert witness work, you might get into some more involved or complex cases and have to research and read up on things. So it was a nice way to use my skills to make additional money in a different way. And then at the end of last year, there was a private equity takeover, which, all common knowledge and whatnot. And that's when I did my huge career makeover and left GI Associates and started doing what I'm doing now, which I established my own pediatric GI practice, Happy Tummies, January 13th officially. And then we saw our first patient June 29th of this year. So we haven't been around for a terribly long time, but things are really taking off. So what I'm doing is running my own clinic. I have an administrative assistant and an administrative assistant and a medical assistant. They are lovely ladies, and they are hardworking ladies, and they keep this place going. So exactly how am I doing it? And probably you guys need to be chiming in, because I got to say, an entrepreneurship class is not something that I had in high school. So y'all are already leaps and bounds ahead of where I was. Maybe where I am, but sometimes I feel exactly like this slide. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun doing it. Basically, what I have done, sort of, kind of, and what I would advise anybody to do is, it sounds, kind of obvious, make a plan, but that's a much bigger deal than you realize, having a plan, not just jumping in and starting to do stuff. And I will say, kind of at the beginning, I did that, I knew I had a lot to do to start a business, and I just started doing some of the things, but you really got to sit down and make a plan and decide where you need to start. I will say that I thought about starting my own clinic and doing my own thing probably a couple of years before I actually did it. And I talked to a small business development counselor. That's Mr. James Bennett. I don't know if he does it anymore, but he was actually at Hines Community College, I think. Yeah. And he gave me an outline, lots of homework, things to think about when starting your business. The guy really knew his stuff. So I talked to someone, I met with him several times, took lots of notes. And when I say look around, ask around, now some of this is, of course, pertaining to me and my particular business. Like I was at GI Associates. So if I'm planning to do my own pediatric GI clinic, look around, what does this place need to run? What does it need to function? What personnel, what equipment, what technology? Of course, not on that scale, but a lot of the things that I already had would be things that I would need for my own practice. And ask around. Of course, like I said, I started with Mr. Bennett, and then I asked around other people who were doing the same thing in different areas. So other private practice docs in the community. I called, I texted, I popped in, how did you do this? And where do you get that? And how does this work? And so that's, a lot of research into what it is you want to do. And then when I say make the first step a good one, because if you don't, then you kind of have to backtrack and make up time or you kind of have to get things in order. If you don't start in order, it's a whole lot more difficult to get things back in order. So kind of in line with what I'm going into next. So the money, you got to know what you have and know what you need. Because you can't really start a business for free. So you either have the capital on your own or you figure out how to get it. When I left GI Associates and, it was all nice and amicable, there was a little bit of a payout because I bought in as a partner in the group. So there was a little bit to get started, but I knew I would need more. I researched, there's small business loans available. That didn't quite work out for me. And then I will say I was a little bit discouraged at the beginning because I was told that banks really didn't do startup loans. And for sure, the first bank that I talked to was like, okay, we don't do small business loans. We don't. And I can't blame them because it's like, you don't have anything, but you're asking us to give you this money on good faith that you're gonna have some. Yeah. So I get it, but I did end up going with a bank. It was a different bank. And I don't know, I guess the stars just lined up. It worked out. I showed them my business plan. I had it all kind of typed out using templates and friends who had already done it. And they gave me my startup loan. So thank God that worked out. That worked out well. Location, that was one of the things I didn't start on early. I was thinking, what do I want to name my practice and how many staff members do I need? And I'm just thinking all these different things and where I wanted to practice. I knew that was important, but I didn't jump on that initially. And that's important because you can't be credentialed if you don't have an address. You can use somebody else's address to get started, but then it's a headache and just it's like an act of Congress to get paperwork and documents changed. Once you do have your final location, you have to go back and change the address. So the advice was find your location, lock it down, get that address so you can start filling out applications to become credentialed with insurances. So I've kind of skipped around on the list, but business entity. So you can't just say, I want to be whatever business, XYZ. You talk to an attorney who helped me establish exactly what kind of business I want it to be, which Happy Tummies. And I can't say that I understand all this stuff to any great extent, but I know Happy Tummies is a PA functioning as an S Corp. Now, that may make a whole lot more sense to you guys, but I know for tax purposes and whatnot, we have to have all of that straightened out. And then EMR is just the medical record system that we use here. You have to decide what kind of EMR you want to use. That costs money. They work slightly different depending on which one you choose. You have to think about utilities. And yes, I could keep going. There's lots of pieces that I had to put into place before I could actually open the doors and start seeing patients. So it took a while, about 6 months. And actually some of those pieces are still not in place. Credentialing, for one, there's an insurance or two that I'm still working with, talking to, battling with, trying to get all of that finalized. So it's an ongoing process, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work to getting things established and going. And so then this is just an idea, my business team, the financial advisor is actually somebody we've had before, but he's definitely been instrumental in this new business venture. My attorney who helped me get the business entity set up, a CPA, because the CPA we had before was fine for personal taxes and whatnot, but then when you get into you're your own business owner and you have employee
laws and everything.
Yes, all of that. I have a marketing team. Marketing and that, I mean, you almost need a whole class in marketing to go. Marketing can go on in so many different directions, and there's no limit to marketing. That's money wise and however much you want to do. Billing and coding for, of course, medical clinics. You've got to have somebody to do that. You could do it yourself, but that's a lot of time, that's a lot of effort. And when you're trying to run a business and actually see patients, it's not really ideal to do a lot of this stuff on your own. And IT, of course, I got to have people to set up my computers, my EMR, keep everything going. And then that's, down to my final thoughts. Set a budget and stick to it. These are kind of ongoing things that I'm working on myself, setting a budget. That brings me back to marketing, because if you don't have a set budget, it can just grow and grow and go. And you find yourself saying, yes, that sounds great. And everything sounds great, but you can't afford everything when you first start out. It's not a smart idea. Be organized or get organized. In my case, I'm more of the latter, get organized. There's just, like I said, a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts. You got to keep up with things. So however that works for you. I'm a pen and paper kind of person, and that's just not conducive to running a busy practice. So I'm getting better with things like spreadsheets and using my devices. Don't be too proud to ask. And that's in general. Like I went to the banks and you've got to ask to get started. A lot of times you may have to ask for money, a loan, or you may have to ask somebody, how does this work? Or what did you do in this situation? Or how did you decide what staff you needed? Or how do you get, your labs done? Or if you don't know, you ask, or you might find yourself kind of digging a hole that'll be really hard to get out of. And then just remember your why, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. It can be a lot, and you can get a little bit stressed out, but you just have to bring yourself back down to why you actually did this. And that's different for different people. For me, it was autonomy. I wanted to be my own boss, have my own schedule so that I could spend time with my kids. I can make my schedule match theirs. I'm off when they're off. I don't have to worry about childcare when school's not in. They can come to my clinic, hang out in my office, and they have. So that would be actually the biggest final thought. Just remember your why, because that'll keep you going and keep your drive up. And that's really it. That's all I had.
Okay. Well, before I get to their questions, I have a few myself.
Sure.
For one, how many other Black female pediatric GIs are there in the state of Mississippi?
There is one other one. Okay. She was actually one of my former partners at GI Associates, and now she is on the coast with her own clinic, Kids and Tummies. I promise I didn't think about her name when I made my name. I really didn't. But Kids and Tummies in Gulfport is her practice.
Okay. And you talked about before you opened your business, you had extensive experience in the medical field. So in any field you go into, how important is that to have prior training and prior experience in the field before you just say, here's what I'm going to do?
You mean as far as opening, like you're like having your own business?
Yeah, like if you'd have gone straight out of residency and opening your own clinic, how much harder would that have been?
That So it's individualized, but for me, that would have been super hard. Only because, and I think it's probably hard for anybody, but it depends on what you are willing to undertake. But when you first come out of training, you're fresh, you've been trained, so you're comfortable with patient care, but being on your own is it's like doing the trapeze stuff without the net. Your attendings, the people who train you, you fall back on them, and nothing's going to be too terrible because they're always looking over your shoulder, and if you mess up or forget something or don't do it quite right, they're there to correct you immediately, or you can just turn around and ask them, well, what do you think about this? What should I do? When you're done, it's you. Now, you may join a group and have partners that you can bounce things off of, but you're the one that things fall back on, and you're the final say so. That's a lot. So I wanted to give myself time to adjust to being the person, to being the attending, the doctor, and not having my attendings and my trainers to fall back on. And that was kind of my thinking when I left training, because somebody asked me, I can't remember who, it came up, do you want to do your own practice, have your own clinic? And I was like, no, that's a lot, that's too much. That being said, I know people do it. And I wanted to throw this in there. I'm glad you asked that. Knowing what I know now, I would have taken the extra time to probably get an MBA. I think that would have been a good thing to do. And I know a couple of partners, one or two partners of mine at GI Associates actually got their MBA while they were in practice. One of them a few years ago, she finished her MBA. I just think it's a good thing to have that sound.
Even associates in business, I think, because I was a business minor in college, it's extremely useful.
Yes, because they don't teach you business or they didn't. Maybe they've changed things since I've come through training, but they don't teach you business. They teach you medicine. Because you're in medicine, that's what you're in medical school to learn, how to take care of patients. They don't teach you the business side. So when you come out like me, and probably most people are like me, you just don't feel like you're ready to run a business. You're ready to see patients.
Exactly.
So it took me a little time. I had some friends who are medical as well, kind of in my ear, like, you need to be doing your own thing. And I'm just thinking, no, you have no idea. And they knew, but it just took me some time to get to this point where I felt comfortable. And after being in business, you see it, it kind of starts you absorb some of that. You have to, being in a practice and being a partner in a practice, you see the business side of it. So you start paying attention to things and figuring out kind of how things work on the business end.
Okay.
So I'm still by no means a business expert with all of this. It's a learning curve, but I felt comfortable enough to go ahead and step out.
Yeah. Another question is Harmony Williams. She is a sophomore and she wants to get into the cosmetology industry, but she is asking, is it hard working with kids?
What? So, okay. I want to say, no, they're just wonderful and they're cute and fun, and they are. It can be hard. It can be hard because depending on the age of the child, they may not be able to tell you very much or explain to you what their symptoms are. So you have to use the parents. And many people in pediatrics will tell you the parents are probably the most difficult part of depending on the type of parent. But you have to work with the parents to get to the bottom of what might be happening with the child. And then even the ones that can talk to you can sometimes be closed off and not very open about things. So that part, trying to get to exactly what the symptoms are and get details about the symptoms, that can be a little bit, it's like being a detective. You got to use clues, you got to use your exam, you got to use the parents, and kind of put things together. But for the most part, it's fun. It's fun. I have a heart for kids. I love them. They are fun, adorable, cute. And sometimes I have to cut the clinic visit off because I'll just stay in the room and talk to the kid and play with them. But we got to keep going. So,
this is Jarvis Owsley. He's a junior. And he asked,
Okay.
why do so many medical professionals hesitate in becoming entrepreneurs?
Why do so many medical professionals hesitate to become entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Probably for the same reason that I mentioned a little bit earlier. We're not trained to do business, to know business. So it seems foreign and it seems like a lot. Yes, because you're comfortable knowing what you know, which is I know how to take care of patients. And like me, for instance, I was one of those people. You come out and you're like, I'm just going to join a group that already has all this stuff going and taken care of, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to see my patients and they can send me my paycheck and that'll be the end of it. Nice and simple. And I really think that's the main reason. We're just not comfortable with the business side of it.
Yeah. And along the same lines, this is Michael Williams. He's a senior, and he asked, what has been the most difficult part about learning how to run your own business?
The most difficult part. Ooh, there are a few difficult parts. For me personally, because I have a problem delegating.
Yeah.
If
you don't know how to do something, you don't have to delegate it.
Exactly. So that has been the most difficult part. And I have definitely had to delegate. There's way too much to do. And there's stuff that I don't know how to do, like you said. And then when you delegate and that task that you delegated doesn't go smoothly because I don't know how to do it. I don't know if it's not going smoothly because the person that's doing it is messing up, or if that's just how it typically goes with that particular kind of task. And so that sort of thing is really difficult for me to process sometimes. So I have to be patient and you have to communicate. And that's a little bit stressful having to delegate so much and not knowing, because of course I want to do everything myself. And there are some things that I will take on myself as time goes on. But for now, I'm just relying on other people. So the most difficult part is having a lot of moving parts that I have a hand in, but I don't have direct control over. So I have to trust other people to help me.
Yeah, this is a good one right here. This is Rodarius Williams, and he's a junior. And something we talk about in class is that entrepreneurs have to find a need that has to be met in a community and a target market. And you talked a little bit about this in your YouTube video, but why are GI doctors, especially pediatric GI doctors, needed in Mississippi?
Oh yeah. There are not that many. There are not that many for the entire state of Mississippi. Well, and I can't say because I forget how many are at university. So university has a pediatric GI department. I know they have two, probably at one point there were 5, but that number fluctuates, 3 to 5. I know there are 2 that are there and have been there for the duration. And then there's GI associates with 2. There's me, and then there's April Ulmer on the coast. And everybody, me, GI Associates, University, we're clustered right here in central Mississippi. I mean, that's just the way that goes. And so we've got the entire state having, I see people from Starkville, Columbus, Tupelo, Amory, Smithville. They come from all over, Hattiesburg. So there's definitely a need. And then on top of that, so now April has her own practice, so we're kind of similar, but she's way on the coast. So for me, I'm offering a smaller, more kind of personal, cozy, comfortable environment instead of the big monster clinic or the huge hospital environment. This is just as in, if I could, I wish I could walk around, but just a nice, comfortable, inviting, I hope, I've had some feedback, environment where you can come in, get your care, leave out, and it's straightforward, simple, not a lot of layers. And then a little shopping strip where they can go get,
there's a lot of places for kids to get ice cream after they get done with you at your location.
going to say the donuts are right next door.
Yeah.
I'm not condoning,
But sometimes you got to bribe kids.
you know, popcorn, donuts, and
Yeah.
there's Froogies. So they have options.
So yeah, and I think you have a great location. Like I'm your neighbor, so I'm right there by you.
Yay! That's right. Thanks.
And just a couple more. And this is Christina Robinson. This is deep right here. She said, "What obstacles have you had to overcome being a Black woman pediatric doctor and also being an entrepreneur?"
And also being
An entrepreneur.
Oh. Ooh. So, and that's a great question. So at the beginning, especially when you're trying to get up and going, trying to figure out what you need and go to the people who can help you get it. Honestly, I think being a female and being a Black female, especially, sometimes people don't necessarily take you seriously, or they don't put your requests, they don't prioritize your requests as quickly or as easily as they would somebody else's. You know, for example, when I was trying to, something that I thought was simple, something as simple as setting up phone and internet, which is obviously extremely important. And I won't say which company, but I started out with the company because I just asked one of my doc friends, who do you use? She was like, oh, I use them. I was like, okay, sure. Because I didn't care. I just needed somebody to set it up. And 2 months passed and there was no movement at all on setting up my internet and my phone. And I called and I was nice and I emailed and tried to be nice. And then it was, well, I'm going to have to use somebody else. And then it was, they were calling to say, oh, look. And when I got to the bottom of it, the guy actually said, I just forgot. And so things like that, you know, it's part of, I mean, I know that's part of it. You live and you learn, you get some bumps and bruises, but I think probably having people not really, I don't want to say understand the gravity of it, but people who don't really take you seriously. I think that's been probably the most difficult part, and you kind of have to stand firm. And me and my nature, you kind of have to play hardball sometimes, even when it's not your nature to play hardball. And that's been difficult too. So I would say to the person who asked, one of the most difficult parts, that's been a difficult part for me.
All right, and we're almost out of time. And we thank you so much for coming. But just something I ask every speaker.
Okay.
Everybody watching right now is teenager, Black, in Mississippi.
Okay.
You grew up, hold on one second. Sorry about that. Like every person in this room, and the people watching in a couple other rooms right now, every person watching right now is a Black teenager in Mississippi. I know for a fact in Smithville, there are not a lot of people that look like you.
No.
So as somebody that grew up Black in Mississippi and has become extremely successful, even if they never want to be a doctor, what can they do to follow in the footsteps of someone like you?
What I would say, because, and that's one of the main things, one of the messages that I have thought about since college, probably, yeah. When I decided, you know, I want to be a doctor and this is what I'm going to do. And I want to be able to tell people, if I did it, you can do it too. This is not magic. It's really just, and I know it, I don't want it to sound cliche because sometimes those things just float over people, but it's time on task and just doing the work, even when other people around you might discourage you from doing the work. And I don't mean that they're doing that in a bad way. It's just if you don't see it, then you don't really understand how to be it. And so for some people, they don't see Black folks being doctors. And that's just, yeah, that's crazy talk. That's dream stuff. Let's keep it real. And so they're not meaning to discourage you. I think I think a lot of people are trying to help keep you from disappointment. But even with things like that, when people who mean well, who might not recognize your dreams for what they are, keep doing the work. And that comes back to also make a plan. I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't have any idea how to be a doctor. I just thought, I love kids. How can I work with kids, help kids? I'm going to be a pediatrician. Well, I made a plan. What do I have to do to be a doctor? Well, you got to get into med school. What do I have to do to get into med school? Well, you have to take these courses. And so I sort of worked backwards to, okay, here's my first step. Yeah. And that came back to high school. Do the work, make the grades so that you can get to college, so you can get to those courses you have to take to get to med school, so that you can decide what kind of, make a plan, do the work. And I know that sounds simple, but it is not easy. It's not easy because there will be people around you who are going to say things and, oh, you're a nerd. Do people still say that? You're a nerd, or you're always studying, or you're in, you in those books, or you're no fun. You have to balance. You do have to live your life and have fun, but do the work. You do the work on the front end, it will pay off on the back end, for sure.
That's awesome. All right, and before we go, tell us if they need any GI issues, how to come see you at Happy Tummies.
Oh, look, you can find me on the website. It's the number 4 Happy Tummies all together, 4happytummies.com, or you can call us 601-398-1949. And we're in Flowood. We're right off Old Fannin. If you know where Little Miss So-and-so is, because everybody knows where Little Miss So-and-so is, and the popcorn place. And
right past Sonic and Whataburger.
Exactly. That's where we are, in that little shopping strip, right in front of Winter Circle Park. You can go to the park, out by the clinic.
Dogwood, if you go shopping when you get done or whatever, and you say, great.
It's a perfect spot.
Yeah, and I did, and you guys see all the way up to 18-year-olds. So, if they have any kind of stomach issues, you'd be more than happy to have some new patients.
Absolutely. Call me if you need me.
That is awesome. Well, Dr. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know you're really busy. And I hope you have a relaxing weekend.
Well, thank you so much. You too. You guys have a great weekend.
All right. See you.